My son called me, confused. He forgot I spent 38 years investigating fraud. My name is Richard Holloway. I'm 72 years old. For 38 years, I investigated financial fraud for one of the largest insurance companies in the country. I wasn't a detective. I wasn't a police officer. I was the man companies called when millions of dollars disappeared and nobody could explain why. I learned one lesson that never failed me. People rarely panic when they're innocent. They panic when someone notices the details. 3 Sundays ago, my own son forgot that. It started with what he called a family barbecue. "Nothing special, Dad," he said over the phone. "Just burgers, the grandkids, and a quiet afternoon." The moment I pulled into his driveway, I knew he'd lied. There were too many cars. None of the grandchildren were outside. The curtains were closed. Nobody was laughing. My instincts had paid my bills for almost 4 decades. They had just started whispering again. When I stepped inside, everyone was already seated. My son, Adam, his wife, Nicole, my younger sister, 2 family friends, their pastor, and a man I'd never met. Gray suit, leather folder, perfect smile, the kind that disappears the moment nobody's looking. Adam stood quickly. There he is. He hugged me, too tightly, too long. Nicole took my jacket before I even answered. The stranger shook my hand. "Pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Holloway." Finally? I had no idea who he was. "Have we met?" He smiled politely. "Not yet." Interesting answer. Most people introduce themselves. He introduced a future. We ate. Or at least everyone pretended to. The conversation sounded rehearsed. Weather, football, my garden, blood pressure, how often I drove at night, questions disguised as concern. Then Adam asked something strange. "Dad, are you still handling your own banking?" I looked at him. "Of course." "You've never thought about letting someone help?" "I already do." His eyebrows lifted. "You do?" "My accountant." A small silence settled over the table. Nicole forced a smile. "I mean, family. Family, funny word. Sometimes it's the safest place in the world. Sometimes it's where the wolves already know your name." The man in the gray suit finally opened his folder. "My name is Stephen Mercer," he said calmly. "I help families prepare for difficult life transitions." There it was. Transitions. People never say control. They say transition. They never say ownership. They say protection. They never say we're taking over. They say we're helping. Stephen slid several papers across the dining table. "No pressure today, Mr. Holloway. These simply allow your son to assist if your health changes." I didn't touch them. Instead, I looked around the room. Every pair of eyes was watching me, not eating, not talking, waiting. That's when I understood. Nobody had come for lunch. They had come for my signature. Adam leaned forward. "Dad, you've been forgetting things lately." "I have. You lost your truck keys. They were in the garage. You missed your doctor's appointment. It was rescheduled. You nearly fell while shoveling snow. I slipped because your brother borrowed my salt spreader." Again, every accusation had an answer. Stephen interrupted before Adam could continue. "Sometimes people aren't aware they're declining." I smiled. "I spent 38 years interviewing liars." The room became silent. "I've learned something interesting." Stephen remained perfectly calm. "And what's that?" The guilty usually prepare their story before the questions begin. Nobody moved. Nicole looked down. My sister suddenly became fascinated with her coffee. Adam cleared his throat. "Dad, nobody's accusing you of anything." "I know. I think you're trying to convince yourselves." Stephen carefully turned one more page. "If you sign today, your family can immediately begin assisting with financial decisions." Immediately. There was that word. Not eventually. Not if necessary. Immediately. I finally picked up the papers, not to sign them, to read them. 38 years of examining contracts teaches you one thing. The danger is never in the large print. It's always hiding where nobody expects to look. Less than 30 seconds later, I found it. A clause transferring temporary financial authority over every major asset I owned. My house, my investment accounts, my retirement income, everything. I slowly placed the papers back onto the table. Then I looked directly at my son. "Adam, He smiled hopefully. Yes, Dad? When exactly were you planning to tell me that your construction company filed for bankruptcy last month? The color disappeared from his face. Nobody spoke, not even Stephen Mercer, because only 3 people knew about that bankruptcy: my son, his lawyer, and the investigator, who had quietly pulled the public records before accepting the invitation to lunch. To be continued. Nobody said a word. Adam's face lost every bit of color. Nicole looked at him first, then at me. Stephen Mercer quietly closed his folder. For the first time that afternoon, he wasn't smiling. What did you just say? Adam finally asked. I leaned back in my chair. I asked when you planned on telling me your construction company filed for Chapter 11. His voice cracked. Who told you that? Nobody. You been spying on me? I almost laughed. No, son. I've been reading. People have forgotten something over the last 20 years. They think public records are invisible simply because they're online. They aren't. Bankruptcy filings, property liens, civil lawsuits, tax judgments, they're all public. You just have to know where to look. And after 38 years investigating financial fraud, I always know where to look. Nicole slowly put her fork down. You checked on us? No. I checked on the company. There's a difference. Adam rubbed his forehead. You don't understand. Then help me. Explain. He looked around the room as if searching for an ally. Nobody rescued him. Finally, he sighed. The business hit a rough year. A rough year? There were delays. Material costs. 3 clients refused to pay. I had to borrow money. I nodded. I know. You borrowed $640,000. His eyes widened. You know that too? I know the bank placed liens against your equipment. I know 2 subcontractors sued you. I know your insurance carrier canceled your commercial policy. And I know your accountant resigned 3 months ago. Nicole stared at her husband. You told me none of that mattered. Adam swallowed hard. It doesn't. It will recover. I looked at Stephen. Still think today is about my mental health? He didn't answer. Professionals rarely defend bad situations. They quietly step away from them. I don't appreciate being interrogated, Adam said. Really? I didn't appreciate walking into an intervention. The pastor finally spoke. Richard, I believe everyone here simply wants peace. I nodded respectfully. So do I. But peace built on deception never lasts. Another silence settled over the room. This one felt heavier, more honest. Nicole finally broke it. Adam, did you really hide all of this from me? He didn't answer immediately. Sometimes silence is the loudest confession. I didn't want you worrying. She laughed, not happily, the kind of laugh people make when the truth finally catches them. You wanted his house. No, we needed help. That's different. No, I said quietly. It isn't. Stephen carefully gathered the unsigned documents. I think today's meeting should probably end. Adam immediately turned toward him. No, we're not done. He looked back at me. Dad, I was going to tell you. When? After you signed? His shoulders dropped. I wasn't trying to steal anything. I just needed time. There it was, not greed, desperation. People rarely begin with evil intentions. Most begin with one bad decision, then another, until eventually they can't remember where the line used to be. I understood that, but understanding someone doesn't require trust in them. I stood up. Everyone watched. I love you, Adam. I always will. His eyes filled with hope. But love and financial authority are 2 different things. His expression changed. I won't sign. Dad, I won't. You don't trust me. I looked directly at him. I don't trust the man who invited strangers into a family conversation before asking me for help. Nobody moved. Even the pastor lowered his eyes. I picked up my coat. Stephen walked toward the door beside me, quietly so only I could hear. He spoke. I didn't know about the bankruptcy. I believe you. If I had, you wouldn't have accepted the meeting. He nodded. No, I wouldn't. He handed me every unsigned document. I'm sorry. That surprised me. People rarely apologize when they're being paid. Outside, cold air hit my face. I stood beside my truck for almost a minute, not because I was angry, because I was thinking. Adam hadn't planned this alone. Someone had convinced him this was the answer. Someone had prepared those documents. Someone had told him taking control of my finances was easier than asking for help. And I intended to find out exactly who that someone was. The next morning, I received an email from an address I had never seen before. It contained only one sentence. If you want the truth about your son's debts, don't trust anyone sitting at your family table. No signature, no explanation, just one attachment, a PDF containing 19 pages of financial records I had never seen before. To be continued. I didn't open the attachment right away. That may sound strange. Most people would have clicked it before they even sat down. But 38 years of investigating fraud had taught me another lesson. The first document you receive is rarely the one someone wants you to understand. It's the one they want you to react to. I poured myself a cup of black coffee, fed my old Labrador Murphy, opened every curtain in the house. Only then did I sit down in my office. The sender had used an encrypted email service. No name, no signature, no return address, just 19 pages. The first page looked harmless. A bank statement. The second, a loan agreement. By page 4, I realized I wasn't looking at Adam's company anymore. I was looking at him, personally. Credit cards, private loans, personal guarantees, everything he'd signed in his own name. By the last page, I slowly leaned back in my chair. This isn't possible, I whispered. The company wasn't $600,000 in debt. Adam was, personally, almost $1 million, most of it guaranteed against future income he no longer had. Then I noticed something else. Every document carried the signature of the same financial advisor, one name, Gregory Nash. I'd never heard of him, but his signature appeared everywhere. Loan restructures, investment recommendations, debt consolidation, bridge financing, too many documents, too much influence. One man shouldn't appear in every major financial decision another man makes unless he was controlling the decisions. I searched his name, former investment consultant, several dissolved companies, multiple complaints, no criminal convictions, nothing that would scare away a desperate client, exactly the type of man who lived in gray areas, legal enough to survive, questionable enough to profit. My phone rang. Adam, I let it ring twice before answering. Dad? His voice sounded exhausted. I wasn't honest yesterday. I know. I need to explain. I'm listening. He took a deep breath. I never wanted your house. That sentence caught my attention, not because I believed it, because he chose those exact words. I said I never wanted your house. You didn't say anything about my money. Silence. Then, you still do this. Do what? You hear things other people miss. I always have. Another long pause. Finally he spoke. I owe more than you think. I know. His breathing stopped for a second. How? I've seen the numbers. You... What? I've seen enough. He sounded frightened. Dad, somebody sent you something, didn't they? Interesting. He wasn't asking whether I'd found out. He already knew someone could expose him. That meant he wasn't the only person involved. Who is Gregory Nash? I asked. The line went completely silent. Not a word. Not even breathing. When Adam finally spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Where did you hear that name? So you know him? Yes. What does he do? He helps businesses survive. No, I replied calmly. He helps desperate people borrow money. That's not the same thing. It becomes the same thing when they can't repay it. Adam didn't argue. Instead, he asked a question that bothered me. Dad, has anyone else contacted you? No. If they do, don't believe everything you read. That wasn't the response of an innocent man. That was the response of someone afraid another story was about to surface. Before I could ask another question, he hung up. I stared at the phone. Murphy walked into the office and rested his head against my knee. Dogs have a way of interrupting your thoughts before they become fears. I scratched behind his ears. Then my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Outside stood a woman in her early 40s, professional clothes, leather briefcase, nervous eyes. Mr. Holloway? Yes. My name is Claire Benson. I work for Gregory Nash, worked past tense. I resigned last week. I didn't answer. She looked over her shoulder before continuing. I know this sounds strange. It usually does. I think your son is being manipulated. That sentence landed differently than I expected. Not your son is manipulating people. Your son is being manipulated. She opened her briefcase. Inside were dozens of folders, color-coded, labeled, organized, the work of someone who understood paperwork. I copied these before I left. She handed me one folder. Across the front was a single label, Holloway. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. My family, she nodded. They've been discussing your assets for months. My grip tightened around the folder. What exactly do you mean? She looked directly into my eyes. I mean, your house wasn't the original plan. I said nothing. Her next sentence made my blood run cold. Mr. Holloway, they weren't trying to take one house. They were planning to control everything you own. To be continued. I stared at the folder for several seconds before I opened it. Claire didn't rush me. She simply stood on my front porch waiting. You should probably sit down, she said quietly. I've heard that sentence before. So have I. And it usually means somebody has already made a decision for me, and she gave me a sad smile. Not this time. I stepped aside. Come in. Murphy greeted her with a cautious sniff before returning to his bed. Dogs are better judges of character than most people. If Murphy trusted her, that was enough for me. We sat across from each other at my kitchen table. Claire slid the folder toward me. Inside were copies of emails, meeting notes, loan summaries, handwritten reminders. One document immediately caught my attention. Client strategy. Richard Holloway estate. Not finances, not retirement, my estate. The page listed my home, my investment portfolio, my pension, even the vintage truck I'd restored with my late wife 20 years earlier. Every major asset had an estimated value beside it. I looked up. Who made this? Gregory. And Adam saw this? Claire hesitated. He attended 2 meetings. My stomach tightened. What exactly was he told? That if you voluntarily transferred financial authority, your assets could be reorganized. Reorganized. I almost laughed. Fraud rarely uses ugly words. It hides behind polished language, Claire continued. At first, your son believed the plan would only protect your money from creditors. And later, he realized too much had already been signed. I closed the folder. So he wasn't leading this. No. He was drowning. And Gregory convinced him this was the only way out. That didn't excuse what Adam had done, but it explained why he had looked terrified instead of confident. Then Claire handed me one final document. It wasn't a contract. It was an email from Gregory Nash, sent 3 weeks before the family barbecue. Once Mr. Holloway signs, immediate asset control becomes possible. Family resistance is unlikely if the meeting appears centered on health concerns. I read it twice, then a third time. There it was, the truth. My health had never been the issue. It had simply been the excuse. Claire broke the silence. I'm sorry. I should have come sooner. You came. That's what matters. She nodded. I've already spoken with state investigators. That caught my attention. You reported him? Yesterday. I smiled for the first time in days. Good. She stood. I imagine your son will call. He will. And Gregory? He doesn't know I copied those files. I walked her to the front door. Before leaving, she turned around. One more thing. Yes? Your son asked several times if there was another way. I didn't answer. He looked desperate, not cruel. After she drove away, I remained on the porch for a long time, thinking. Loving your child doesn't mean protecting every mistake they make. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to help them tell one more lie. That evening Adam called. I answered immediately. Dad, I know everything. A silence. I met Claire. Another silence. Longer this time. Finally, he started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like someone who had spent months pretending to be stronger than he really was. I'm sorry. I know. I was scared. I know. I thought I could fix it. I know. I never wanted to hurt you. For the first time, I believed him because people lie differently than they apologize. I can't save the business, I said. I know. I won't sign away my future. I know. but if you're finally ready to tell the truth. I'm listening. The next morning, Adam walked into my house carrying a cardboard box. Inside were every document Gregory had ever given him, every contract, every loan, every email. He placed the box on my dining room table. I'm done hiding. Together, we spent the next 6 hours organizing every piece of evidence, exactly the way I had organized fraud cases for nearly 4 decades. 3 months later, Gregory Nash was charged with multiple counts of financial fraud, conspiracy, and deceptive business practices. Several families came forward after Adam did. He wasn't the first victim. He was simply the first one willing to testify. His company didn't survive, neither did his pride, but he did. Today, Adam works for another construction firm. He earns less than he once did, but every dollar he brings home belongs to him. No lies, no hidden loans, no impossible promises. As for me, I still live in the same house. Murphy still sleeps beside my chair. Every evening and every Sunday, Adam comes over for dinner, just the two of us. No consultants, no folders, no strangers pretending to care. Only a father and a son, finally learning that trust isn't rebuilt with signatures. It's rebuilt one honest conversation at a time. The end.